If you're running paid ads or want to add paid ads as a marketing channel, this might be the most expensive video that you don't watch, because in this video, I'm going to break down the 7 lessons I learned after spending $700,000 of my own money on meta ads and YouTube ads, all in-house by myself with my own money, no agencies or anyone outside of me. You see, most marketers think that the secret to running paid ads is testing new creatives or throwing more UGC creators into the ad creatives. But after spending a little bit shy of $1 million, I've realized that it's so much deeper than just making great videos. It's not just the ad, it's who you're speaking to. It's the exact messaging you deliver to them. It's what they see after the click. It's the whole system beyond them seeing the ad. And from click to close, start your whole funnel if you stay consistent with the same message to the same person throughout. These lessons don't show up in Ads Manager, and they're the difference between burning cash and being break even as a business and being wildly profitable and scaling your business. And if you don't know me, my name is Garrett Campbell. I'm the founder of Conversion IQ. I don't have a course to tell you. I was the entire marketing department in my last business, and I'm sharing all the lessons I learned in doing that. These lessons didn't come from a book. They came from me spending a lot of my money and making a lot of mistakes. And in this video, I'm gonna break down the 7 lessons I learned with all the systems behind them, all the mistakes that I made, so that way you don't have to make these same mistakes. So let's get into lesson number 1. You are 1 ad away from changing everything in your business. And the reason I say ads specifically is because you get the highest multiples of leverage the higher you are top of funnel than you are as you get deeper into the bottom of funnel stuff. As in, you get more leverage when you're near the click at the ad level than you do boosting your close rate. And let me just show you, this is like a prime example, right? So here you can see a pretty typical flow of how a funnel works. You have an ad that goes to a landing page, that goes to a video sales letter where you explain what you do, you fill out a little form, and then you book in a call, and then the deal gets closed on the actual call. For most of you guys are probably doing relatively similar things to this, maybe a couple things are interchanged. And here's some pretty standard KPIs for each piece of this funnel. You have a 1% click-through rate, 100 people see your ad, 1 person clicks on it, 12% of those clicks actually see your landing page and then put in their name, email, phone number. 15% of the people that actually see your VSL will decide to actually book in a call. About 70% of the people actually show up to that call, and then about 25% of the people who do show up will actually close. Let me zoom into a real example of if you just have an average ad to drive this point home, right? If you put $20,000 in ads and you have all the same KPIs that I just mentioned, the biggest focus here being this 0.8% click-through rate. Again, average to below average ad, all the metrics stay the same. You close 10 deals, you have a $5,000 deal size, you make about 50 grand, and you have a 2.5x ROAS. Now, if you were to do something like keep everything exactly the same, but just increase your close rate from 25% to 40%, that's massive. If you have a 15% boost on a 25% close rate, we're talking 60% improvements on close rate. And despite having a 60% lift, as in the change from 25 to 40, you go from 25% close rate to 40% close rate. That is amazing. Having 40% close rates as a business is phenomenal, and in some industries, totally unheard of. And by doing that, you only make an extra $30,000 a month with the same amount of ad spend. This does take your ROAS to a 4x. Now, let's see what happens if we have the exact same close rate, but we just have a really damn good ad, right? So close rate, same 25%. But our click-through rate jumps to 2.5%. You'd be sitting at a whopping $157,000. We're talking an extra $100,000 in extra revenue just by making better ads that get more clicks. So as you can see, just to drive this point home, you get so much more leverage in making better ads with higher click-through rates or anything top of funnel, like boosting an opt-in rate by changing a headline on a landing page or making a far better ad than you do making a minor bump in your show rate or your close rate. And the reason this lesson actually unlocked for me was I had my ugly face in the ads for a very long time, and I was doing all types of crazy stuff. I was throwing props in there. I was shooting money guns. I was doing all types of crazy stuff to get people's attention in ads. And despite all of that, I was lucky to get past a 1.5% click-through rate, despite making what I believe to be really great ads that were extremely profitable still. However, when I put my fiance's beautiful face into an ad, she had a 2.5%, 3%, sometimes even a 4% click-through rate. We had cost per calls getting as low as $40 when we were used to $120, $150 calls. Our CAC, I don't even want to talk about how low it was. We went from thousands to hundreds in a cost per acquisition, which is a game changer for a business of being far more profitable. So the biggest lesson that I can take away is put a lot of emphasis in making a high volume of ad creatives, not even just a high volume of ad creatives, but the right ad creatives. And sometimes that does require swapping out a couple different faces in the ads to really get the highest boost. Pro tip, If you're a dude and you're always in the ads, throw women in ads. They almost notoriously always have higher click-through rates than dudes being in the ads. Bonus points if they're pretty. That is lesson number one. You are one ad away from changing everything inside your business because the boost of click-through rate is so astronomically important. Lesson number two is that your best ads are hidden inside of your sales calls. You see, a big problem that a lot of people have, right, is when you look at your marketing budget, right? Let's say you're spending $10K, just to make the math simple. Normally, if this were a list of all of your budget, 70% goes to what's working, and then 30% goes to testing. Now, sometimes when I talk about the testing stuff specifically, this is where you're making new ads, you're trying new stuff to trying to beat your click-through rate for the ads that are already working and are already profitable. What a lot of people do when they're testing new ads is they kind of just write stuff that sounds really good in a Google Doc when some copywriter or whoever's in your marketing department, maybe your CMO, is actually writing these ads. He writes what looks phenomenal and it's like, let's just test it and see what happens. This is our testing budget. But what happens is sometimes there's a disconnect from your marketer's brain of understanding what actually makes leads and calls convert and what actually converts, because there's a disconnect between the words that are coming out of your prospect's mouth and the marketer's idea of what comes out of your prospect's mouth, right? And if you're running ads to book sales calls, your best marketing gold is always going to come out of your prospect's mouth. So here's a stupid simple system that I built inside of my last business that I'm taking into this business, Conversion IQ. You have your sales call, pretty standard stuff. Did the deal close or did the deal not close? Once we make that decision, we decide if they did not close, we're gonna find the desires that they had, as in they hopped on the sales call with the intention of getting something. They had a certain outcome that they were hoping to get on the other side of making this purchase, but that desire did not get met by your products and services. Or there were just objections, to be frank, probably because of that happened. Now, if they are not qualified, there's no point in optimizing your ads or writing ads for these people who shouldn't be buying your stuff anyway. And your CMO or your marketing person might have a disconnect between that, right? They might think that the people that actually close the easiest are a subset of your customers that actually are really hard to close and really don't get that good of results. So you either need to tighten your messaging to prevent those people from getting on calls, or just straight up exclude that avatar in the forms, which I'll talk about later in this video on number 5. However, if they are qualified, these are phenomenal ad angles, because if these people that don't buy have desires or objections that are occurring on these calls, these can be your best marketing angles. If you run a marketing agency for chiropractors, right? And the desire that this person has that didn't buy was that they wanted ads specifically to get this red light bed therapy customer that is worth a bunch of money to them, and they're trying to get more of those guys, it might be worthwhile to mention that in your ads. Or if they have objections as to what they don't like about your service or what issues that you have. This could be phenomenal for retargeting ads, to write ads to handle their objections for people who have seen your ads or maybe booked sales calls with you or became leads with you but didn't actually convert, to hit them with retargeting ads. Or in your email list, start drilling them on your email list, handling all of those objections in emails for people who already opted in and gave you their information. We'll talk more about email marketing a little bit later. The other segment of customers are the awesome ones. These are the people that are closing and giving you money, right? So for the people who do close, what we want to get from them is their pain points and their buying reasons. Because it's clear that if they gave you money, they had pain points that made them decide that they needed to hop on a call and buy some stuff to get those pain points and those problems solved. And what often happens in an ad that has a lower click-through rate versus an ad that has a higher click-through rate is you can more specifically describe the problem of your ideal avatar who's constantly buying your stuff. And where there's a big mismatch in your ads is if you're saying pain points that really aren't as painful as the big pain points. So if you look at all your customer sales calls who have actually paid and gave you money, and you look at all of the pain points that they have, those are all of your hooks. Those are all of your angles in your ads that you need to start testing, right? Because if you do this with that 30% test budget, it's going to be drastically more accurate. And instead of burning 30% of your ad spend on stuff that never works, that 30% could be spent so much more efficiently. Because instead of a total test where maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, you know with at least an 80% likelihood that these are going to work because they're coming out of your buyers' mouths. The second piece of this is the buying reasons. You're doing your business such an injustice if prospects are hopping on calls and there's a one moment in a sales call where they decide, oh, you do this thing? that is exactly why I'm going to actually give you money. Because if that one thing is not in your marketing material and they're not even realizing it until they get into the sales call, how many people in the world, in your TAM, are just like them that don't realize that your service does that specific thing? If you can just take those things and explain the pain point and then the exact thing that your service does that solves that pain point, my Lord, are you going to lower your cost per acquisition, have higher click-through rates, and have way better ads that are far more profitable. So, lesson number 2, your best ads are hidden inside of your sales calls. Lesson number 3, your most profitable customers are often a subset of your actual big generalized customer base. So, my last business was called Closing Bible. We had a sales training and placement offer for sales reps, right? But what we actually found is that there was a much more profitable subset of the customer. And I actually got this lesson from flying out to talk with Alex Ramosi and a few of the people on his portfolio team to talk about my business. And I talked specifically to Alex for about an hour and a half about my business. And what he asked me is, hey, if you had to ask your client success team and then you had to ask your sales team, who are the best people to work with, right? If you ask your client success team who gets the results the fastest, who's the least headache, who does everything that you need them to do, and who just flat out gets the best results, what would that answer be? And then if you were to ask your sales team, what exact people are the easiest to close, they pay the most upfront, they close the fastest, they're the least headache to actually close, and they have the most buying power, who is that exact person? And oftentimes what you're going to find is the answer from your client success team and your sales team is going to be the exact same answer. What we started doing from that moment forward is for door-to-door sales reps, they were that segment of the time from a seasonal perspective. So for those of you guys who do not know, for door-to-door sales reps, they knock mostly during the summers because at least in America, it's hot during the summer, it's cold during the winter. And they can't knock doors during the winter because they're out there in the elements doing it. And a lot of these services are typically putting solar panels on the house, doing pest control stuff, and it's just easier stuff to do when it's warmer outside. So door-to-door sales reps are the richest in about August, September, and then they're basically unemployed until it gets done being cold and it gets being warm again. However, if we were to market to door-to-door sales reps in April, May, they are the brokest that they are throughout the entire year, and they're about to go into their knocking season. So when would be the best time to market to door-to-door sales reps? It would obviously be in August when they are the richest they've ever been that year, and they are now recently looking for a new sales role. So we would run ads of them specifically only talking about the pains and the struggles and the frustrations and the benefits of, them being in door to door, and then the benefits of moving over to the thing that I do, which is a remote 6-figure sales job. And we saw an insane drop in our cost per call, in our cost per lead, in our click-through rates, an increase in our click-through rates, and a decrease in our cost per acquisition going after door-to-door reps within that time frame. However, when it came to the entire year, and just as a total generalization, the tech sales reps were the best for us to deal with. It's because they had pretty chunky salaries. They'd typically been in the game for a little bit. They were very comfortable doing cold calls and doing what I call real sales rep work, doing outbound, doing referrals, doing what they can to generate business. So when they had the cash, they're used to working way harder in order to make that money. And then they can get warm inbound leads booked in on their calendar and they make the exact same money, but then have the freedoms that they don't get in corporate. It was a no-brainer for them to buy. And these people would always pay in full. They got the best results with us and they were the easiest to work with. So we spent a lot of our time focusing specifically on tech sales reps. For you guys in your own business, you guys are probably already thinking and the wheels are already turning like, man, we go after this big customer, but then if we were to splice the types of customers we get within that bucket, there's probably customers that are a total fucking pain in the ass, and there's customers that are awesome, and the awesome customers normally pay the most and get the best results. Lesson number 4, your pre-call form might be killing your conversions. So as you guys saw in this example here, we talk about a standard funnel being ad, landing page, a video sales letter, and then they fill out a form before they get on the actual sales call. What we found to be really interesting is we had an issue in our business to where we started getting lower and lower show rates, and it was killing our conversions. Our show rates went from 65, 70%, which for B2C is really good, down to like 45, 50%, almost 40% at sometimes. After having a high level of frustration with this, I had a bright idea and it paid off big time. I basically took all of our data of every single one of those questions, right? So we would ask different questions in our form, like how many years of sales experience do you have? What's your biggest issue with your current role? What are you looking for in another role? Basic stuff like that. However, we ran all these questions and all these answers through ChatGPT. So we got a list. So we got all the data from Jotform. You guys can use Jotform, Typeform, your Calendly, pre-booking form, whatever form software you use. Export all of that data into a Google Sheet. And then export all of the data of all the names, emails, and phone numbers of the leads who have actually been on sales calls that have filled out that form, and then whether they showed up, and then whether they closed. And then you can take both those customer lists, upload them into ChatGPT, and then what you could find is your show rate and close rate per question and answer specifically. So like we would see for question 1, answer 1, we would have a 70% show rate and a 10% close rate. And then we would just get that exact answer for every single one of these questions and answers. And what we noticed is there are certain types of customers that just had very low show rates and close rates for us. As an example, if we look at question 4 here, right? We had one segment of our customers for one answer that had a 12% show rate and a 5% close rate. So get this, if we had 300 sales calls that specifically answered this on question 4, and only 12% of them showed up, we're looking at, what's this, 300 times 0.12, we got 36 sales calls that actually show, and then out of those, only 5 of them actually closed. So on 300 sales calls, we would have 1.8 deals closed. Talk about an insane burn in capital. And if you guys are interested more specifically, people that had more than 10 years of sales experience match this criteria. Typically, these are just older people who are not familiar with hopping on Zoom calls and going through a standard online funnel. They're not very privy to doing techie things like going online, going through websites and doing stuff like that. These are people that are 50, 60 years old that were just flat out not our avatar and not our people. So what we did was pretty simple, very basic conditional logic. If they answered that specific question on our job form, we would just redirect them to not be allowed to hit our booking page. They would just go to a different piece of our funnel, a different page that said, hey, you got disqualified for something that you put in your form. Go ahead and check out my YouTube videos. It's free information. Go check it out. Go subscribe to my YouTube channel. And doing that and that alone took our show rates from 40% all the way up back to 65% where we had it originally, which is a 50% lift in our deals closed and conversion. Lesson number 5. For those of you guys that are deep in the game of marketing, you've probably seen this before, and some of you guys have never seen what I'm showing you right now. These are the awareness levels, and awareness levels matter much more than you think. These are basically the tiers to how aware a lead is about your business, right? So probably about 20% of the market is totally unaware. They don't know that they have a problem. They don't know that there's a solution for that problem. They don't even know that you exist as a business. They don't know anything. Then you have the segment of the market who's aware that they have a problem. They're like, hey, I have this problem. I don't think there's any real solutions for this, but I do have this problem and I know that I have this problem. The segment below that is solution aware. It's like, I have this problem and I know there's also a solution to this problem on the market. I'm aware that these things exist. Below that is product aware, as in, I have a problem, I know there's solutions, and I know specifically about your business's solution. And the last thing is the most aware. They're like, I got a problem, I know there's solutions, I know about your product solution, and I know everything about the customers who have bought that, the results that they've got, and that people love it. I know everything about this stuff. Unfortunately, that's only about 10% of the market more times than not, depending on how good you are at marketing and brand awareness. There's 2 points that I want to make here. The first thing is your messaging, and the second thing is going to be your CTA, your actual call to action. So let's talk first about the messaging. You're going to be able to get such a bigger segment of the market if you're hitting the problem and solution aware crowd. Let's use the example of a chiropractor. I went to college for chiropractic. It's something that I thought my career was going to be once upon a time. And let's think about someone who's considering a chiropractic solution. If you were to run an ad with your messaging being the most aware, hey, if you live in the Chicago area and you want to come down to Campbell's Chiropractic Clinic, go ahead and come on in, we'll give you an adjustment. That is the most aware ad. If they've never heard of Campbell's Chiropractic, they're not going to click on that ad. So the click-through rates are going to be drastically low. For those of them that do happen to click, maybe they go to your landing page or they go to your website or whatever, they're not really that inclined to actually take the call. And the real point here is Facebook or whatever platform that you're serving this ad on, they're going to hit these people, and then very soon you're going to tap out of this market because it's such a small segment of the market. And as you spend more and more money on ads, these types of ads don't work. I'm sure you've heard marketers or business owners say, oh, I just can't get past $100 a day or $1,000 a day on ads. It's not that Facebook doesn't want you to spend more money. It's that your ad has essentially tapped out a piece of the market, or you just suck at what you do. So if we take that same example, but we go after the problem-aware crowd, ad number 2. When you bend down to tie your shoes, do you get a sharp pain shooting from your hip down your legs? Is it hard for you to get on the ground and wrestle with your kids because your back is killing you? Let me tell you something that might change your year. That's not normal, and it's actually a really easy fix. And it's something that I've spent the past 10 years of my career doing. Some of you guys may have never went to a chiropractor. You may think it's just cracking backs and making a little noise, and you may not believe in chiropractic as a profession overall. But we've actually served 7,000 patients and have cured back pain for so many of our patients. Come into our office at Campbell Chiropractic today here in Chicago, and you can get an adjustment for just $20 for your first visit, and I promise you we'll fix your back pain. Click the link below, fill out our form, and we'd love to have you come into our office. That, with the hook, going after the problem-aware crowd of, do you have back pain when you try to go down to play with your kids? Do you have back pain when you reach down to tie your shoes? Those are all the people that are problem-aware. If they were solution aware, they might be aware of chiropractors, maybe have already gone to a chiropractor before, but they might not know about your actual chiropractic office. By having the messaging at the hook level to bring people in, going after people that are problem aware, you can now get the 60% of the market. And that will allow you to spend $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a day. Maybe not for a local chiropractic clinic, to be fair, without getting capped out at a certain level of spend. Now let's talk about the CTA level of things. You see a bottom of funnel CTA, bottom of funnel, which is basically like, here, a bottom of funnel CTA is buy now, book a call, stuff like that. This is like give me money or hop on a call to give me money. This ultimately won't get people who might hit your landing page actually become a lead or become a call because they're not sold enough yet. So again, you might get people to hit your landing page, you might get people to maybe even become a lead, but you're not gonna get these people as paying customers because they're not on the spectrum of being sold. They're not sold enough to actually start taking those actions. What you need to do in order to get these people that are more problem or solution aware to actually convert, as in becoming a lead or maybe even a sales call, is by having what I call middle of funnel CTAs. So this is a middle of funnel CTA. This will allow you to get these people to actually take action because it isn't directly about giving you money immediately because they're not ready to do that immediately. But they might take an action that has a lower barrier to entry that still allows them to learn more. And this obviously is very contextual to your specific business. But this could be something like a free trial. This could be something like giving away an educational resource that might help solve the problem that they have. If you're that chiropractor, maybe you have a free guide to get rid of your back pain by the way that you sleep, or the right pillow to have, or the right bed to have to prevent your back pain from occurring. Maybe that's a workout or two that can prevent back pain. And you can then give value to these people that aren't ready to give you money yet, but now you have their contact information, you've gave them some value, they now know you a little bit better. And then if you were to call them, text them, email them, and then ask them to come into your chiropractic office, they would then have a higher likelihood of converting. Now, the sales cycle might be a little bit longer for this crowd, but this allows you to actually scale your business past certain levels of spend. Let's get into lesson number 6. I think you guys are gonna love this. This is the importance of what I call liquidation events. And here on my fancy iPad drawing, you're gonna see something that you've seen earlier in this video. This was the metric breakdown of having an average ad and an average close rate. Put 20K in, you get 63K out. This is not bad. You have a 3x ROAS. You're living life, but you can squeeze so much more out of this with a liquidation event. Because some people are just okay with this and they say that, okay, average returns are good for me. But if you're watching this channel, you're not okay with average returns. You're looking for grand slam home runs, and liquidation events can help you get there. Picture this. In this example, we had 13 closed deals, but we had 50 people get on sales calls with us that actually showed up. We had 480 leads. We had 4,000 people hit our landing page, and we had 400,000 people see our ads within that month. So out of all that traffic that we paid for, we had 2.7% of people that became leads actually close, which means there's 97% of the people that you paid for that are still left to sell to that might not have taken action or made a buying decision yet until our liquidation event. And what is this liquidation event, you might ask? It is what we call webinars. Some people will change the words to sound less salesy. They might call it a free class. They might call it a virtual workshop. It might be an actual in-person event that's free to go to. For the sake of you grimy little internet marketers that are watching this right now, let's call it a webinar because we all know what it actually is. We do a webinar every single month inside the business because it is the best liquidation event to take all the deals that we close and all the capital that we already spent to squeeze a little bit more juice out of the lemon. We do this at the end of every single month. So right now it's July 19th. I would probably do this on like July 27th. I would have a virtual event. Like if I were doing a webinar for my business Conversion IQ, we are basically a B2B AI SaaS that integrates with your call recording softwares to read all of your sales call transcripts to understand why people buy, why people don't buy, what objections, pain points, aspirations, and buying reasons that they have in order to understand as a sales manager what each individual rep is doing wrong, and also using all of that qualitative data to use to generate ad copy for ads and emails and different stuff like that. What I would do is a virtual workshop. It would go something along the lines of this. Hey, this is a totally free workshop for you. You can use this free software tool. We can read all of your past months worth of sales calls and understand why people aren't buying. Do you want to know why the people that don't buy in your business actually don't buy? Find out for free at my free class. I'll see you on July 19th at 5 p.m. What am I going to do? I'm going to hit my email list. We have 480 leads minus 13 that didn't convert within that month. We also got 500 leads last month. We also got 500 leads the month before that. At this point, we're building a real asset of an email list, which we're going to talk about in lesson number 7, which is money we spent. We may as well get the return on it and not just totally pump and dump these leads if we don't get them to convert immediately on that first sales call. We're going to send emails and SMS campaigns, driving them all to a more middle of funnel CTA that's lower friction to go do. We can run basic retargeting ads at everyone who hit our landing page. You can go into Meta and you can put in your URL of your landing page. For everyone who hit that landing page but didn't actually put in their name, email, and phone number to become a lead, you can run retargeting ads at them. There's only 4,000 people that hit that landing page within the past 30 days. You can spend $50 and live rent-free on their feeds multiple times a day and week. Or if you're comfortable putting your nuts on the table a little bit here, you can run retargeting ads at all of your ad viewers from that past month. Maybe your CTA in the past was to watch a video and book a call, and they weren't ready to do all that. So this middle of funnel CTA, like we were talking about in lesson number 5, we can use to take those people that aren't ready to take that much of an action, but are okay with going to a free thing, learning some stuff about their business using my awesome software, which you can go check out at the link in the description. Wink, wink. You can run retargeting ads at all these people for very cheap because it's retargeting traffic, and you can freaking clean house. Get all these people, give them an hour worth of value, let them try out your products and services for free, help them fix problems in their business, or if you're B2C, fix their problems. And then at the end, after you've given them a bunch of value, you can then pitch them at the end of it. Let's say we just market to those 4,000 people. Maybe there's 1,000 or 2,000 emails from the past few months. There's the 4,000 landing page viewers. Let's just say 2,000 people, right? We get 400 of them to register for this free event. We get 200 of them to show up. We have a 10% close rate on this webinar, which is actually pretty standard metrics. And we close another 20 deals. We've now pulled, with a 5K deal size, an extra $100,000 out of this one liquidation event. So what was a 63K month with a 3x ROAS is now a 163K month with an 8x ROAS. Liquidation events are essential to do in your business, and you should be doing them on a monthly basis. If you do them too frequently, there's kind of less liquidation to kind of pull out of your system. But if you do it monthly, I found that that's kind of the best cadence to do these to still kind of get the juice for your squeeze and make it worthwhile. This isn't a shiny object syndrome of doing 100 different things in your marketing. This is a necessity to do to be more profitable from the same ad spend. And then finally, let's move on to lesson number 7. Email marketing is the revenue that you are ignoring. This is a very similar lesson to what I talked about earlier with liquidation events. There's this crazy study from HubSpot that talked about how email was the highest ROAS channel, and oftentimes you can get a 40-to-1 ROAS. Let's be real here. It's not that hard to email your list. You can spend an hour a week in the age of AI that we're in to write 5 emails a week to your list. If your business is big enough and it doesn't make sense for you as the founder or the CMO to be doing this yourself, your only real cost is the labor and maybe a little bit of the software to actually do this. And keep in mind here, we're not talking about cold email. We're talking about leads that we already paid for, getting their email address and emailing them on a recurring basis. It's very standard for e-commerce brands to pull about 15 to 20% of their revenue from their email list. But oftentimes, other types of businesses don't put the same priority that e-com brands do on email marketing, and it blows my mind. Here's the cadence that I ran that I seemed to work the best for my email list. So every single Monday, I would email my entire email list. In the call to action on these emails, sometimes I'm getting them to buy something. Sometimes I'm just showing them my latest YouTube video. Sometimes I'm just pushing them to a free resource. Point being, if you're not emailing your list, start emailing your list, and I promise you, you'll do better than not emailing your list. So every single Monday, we hit the entire list. And then Tuesday through Friday, yes, we send it Monday through Friday, 5 emails a week. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we only email the people who have opened up an email within the past 30 days. This is basically just to be conscious of hitting spam too frequently, getting high unsubscribe rates. If you're emailing people every single day and they've not opened your stuff for a while, you're going to just start hitting promotions. You're going to get your email flagged. You're going to run into spam issues. It's not worth it. You're going to lose your domain reputation. Don't do all that. So if you email the whole list Monday and then Tuesday through Friday, daily emails only for people that open the last 30 days, I've seen this to be the sweet spot for volume. I'm not going to go too deep into the type of content that you could do. Biggest thing is value. It's case studies and testimonials. It's really good storytelling or analogies about your product and service. And obviously, it's call to actions to get people to buy your stuff or hop on a sales call. Pro tip, most people live on Gmail, which is a Google product, obviously, and YouTube is also a Google product. So you're gonna get much higher open rates, hitting primary inbox, and click-through rates by promoting Google products. So whether this is a Google Drive link or this is a YouTube video or any Google product that you link in there, you're gonna get insanely higher open rates and click-through rates than you would in any other email that doesn't have those products. They're going to prioritize you in the inbox of all of your prospects if you do this. Your email list is your most valuable asset. Oftentimes when people actually exit their business and sell their business, part of the reason why they do this more times than not, and what actually makes it really valuable, is the customer list. And you can get a little bit of a bigger boost in your multiple if they're buying strictly for that data, or the data is a big reason for making the acquisition. If people are frequently engaged in this list, opening your emails, they're constantly reading it. So if someone buys it and then emails that list, it's not someone who hasn't received an email in a year who would never open your emails if they got them. And this is essentially as close to free marketing as it can possibly be. And again, you're already spending money on these people. For the love of God, email them. There's no point in even collecting an email and a phone number if you're not going to email, text, or call them. An email is the highest ROAS channel that you could possibly get. And these are the 7 lessons I learned spending $700,000 of my own money on paid ads. I hope you got value from this video. As I mentioned before, I am the founder of Conversion IQ. If you want to click the link below, you can actually check it out. See what it could do for your business. If you're running ads or making a bunch of marketing material to book sales calls, it is exactly for you and will help you grow your business, lower your cost per acquisition, lower your cost per call, your cost per lead, improve your lead quality, get better messaging that brings in the right prospects, and will heavily save you time doing call reviews for your sales team. So you can click the link below. You can join my email list. I post tons of valuable emails on my email list. So please check that out. And then lastly, subscribe to this YouTube channel and hit the notification bell so you can get notified when I make more banger videos just like this.